Hey everyone, it's Jenny freaking Kim. Today, I'm excited to bring you my tier list of K-pop groups for 2024. I've gone back through everything, performances, releases, and achievements from my favorite groups, and compiled it all into one video. In this tier list, I'll be ranking these 16 groups and sharing my personal thoughts. If you've been following my channel, you know I'm all about sharing my rankings, tier lists, and reviews of female K-pop groups and idols throughout the year. The new year has officially begun, and I can't wait to see what amazing moments K-pop has in store for us. However, I am not done talking about 2024. Please keep in mind, this is completely my opinion. It's not based on charts or popularity. It's all about what stood out to me. I'd love to hear what you think too, so drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm always open to hearing different takes and having fun discussions. We have a lot to talk about, so let's dive right in. To kick things off, let's talk about Twice. Twice has been quite generous last year by pushing out 3 releases, with Youth, Dive, and Strategy. I have to say, their title tracks were pretty solid overall, but the B-sides didn't hit the same for me. Take Dive, for example. The title track is easily one of my favorite songs from them in a while, but the rest of the album just wasn't on the same level. Tracks like I Got You and One Spark were nice, but personally, I'd pick Dive over those two any day. Now, when it comes to my favorite overall release, it has to be Strategy. The B-sides on that one felt a bit stronger to me, and the title track itself was great. Plus, can we talk about how Twice teamed up with Megan Thee Stallion for one of the tracks? I did not see that collab coming, but it really worked. Honestly, it was such a pleasant surprise, and I'd love to see more Megan and Twice collabs in the future. As for their performances last year, nothing really stood out as groundbreaking to me. That said, I did enjoy their live performance with Amazon Music. It was super nostalgic seeing them perform some of their biggest hits, and it was a nice reminder that Twice still knows how to own the stage, but even then, I don't think it was enough to captivate me. Still, I think the title track Dive was the only thing that I really liked from Twice last year. Everything else felt kind of average or even below that, to be honest, at least compared to what I'm used to seeing from Twice over the years. Overall, I'd have to place Twice in the underwhelming tier for 2024. Don't get me wrong, they didn't have a bad year, but compared to what they've delivered in the past, it just didn't feel as exciting. It also raises the question, is Twice past their prime? No idea. They are a 3rd-gen group in an industry now dominated by rising 5th-gen idols. Still, considering how long they've been in the game, I think Twice is doing pretty well. Next up, let's talk about Misamo. Okay, technically not a full group, but a sub-unit. I gotta admit, I was really impressed with Misamo last year, especially when it comes to their music. Their album Hot Couture was packed with a great mix of songs, and we finally got solo tracks from them too, which was such a treat. Even though this is only their 2nd year as a sub-unit, they've already built up a solid discography. Personally, Do Not Touch remains my favorite song from them, but New Look and Identity are definitely close runners-up. Let's not forget about their solo tracks. Each member brought something unique, but Mina's Misty really stood out to me. It's such a beautiful and catchy song, and I found myself playing it on repeat so many times. One thing that really stood out for me was their promotional performance in Japan. They absolutely crushed it with their live set that even included songs from their previous release. The turnout was massive, and it's clear they have a huge fan base ready to support them. Honestly, I think Misamo would absolutely kill it if they went on a world tour. They've got the talent and the fan power to make it a huge success. Misamo is such a strong sub-unit, and I really feel like they deserve more recognition. For now, I'm placing them in the great tier. The only thing holding them back from reaching their full potential is that they're tied to Twice. If they ever got the chance to fully focus on Misamo for a year or two, I think they could easily reach even greater heights. Fingers crossed that we see more from them this year. Moving along to our 3rd group, ITZY. ITZY kicked off 2024 with a bang, dropping their album Born to Be. This era felt like a shift for ITZY, leaning into a more aggressive concept compared to their original style, and honestly, I think it was a refreshing change. The album gave us a solid lineup of songs, and on top of that, we finally got solo tracks from the members, which I absolutely loved. My personal favorites are Chaeryeong's Mine and Yeji's Crown on My Head. Both songs showed off their individual strengths so well. Unfortunately, this era was also marked by Leah's hiatus, which carried over into their next release, Algorithm. Speaking of Algorithm, it was a bit of a quiet moment for ITZY. The era felt really short, and while the songs were fine, nothing about it truly stood out or had a lasting impact. It's one of those releases that flew under the radar, and I rarely hear anyone talk about it. That being said, the Gold era was the standout release for me. With Leah's return, ITZY is finally at full strength once again, which was such a joy to see. I loved how they included the final version of Born to Be on the album featuring Leah's vocals. It was such a thoughtful addition, and I have to applaud ITZY for doing that. It really brought things full circle. Performance-wise, ITZY shined during their Born to Be World Tour. The stages perfectly captured the vibe of the album, and their solo performances added so much personality to the shows. One thing that really stood out to me was how the members performed each other's solo songs. Ryujin's rendition of Yuna's song caught me off guard, and was a great example of how much fun they were having on stage. Personally, I think ITZY has improved this year in terms of their quality of music, at least in comparison to recent years. However, I still believe that they would have to improve even more if they want to become Daesung caliber again. Their live performances have always been top tier, so they're just fine in that department. Overall, I'm placing ITZY ahead of Misimo in the great tier. They've had a strong year, but I don't think it compares to their Wannabe or Dala Dala eras, which I would argue were their peak. Am I saying ITZY is falling off? Not necessarily, but it's clear they're no longer dominating the K-pop scene the way they once did, and it does leave me a little concerned as we head into 2025. Still, I have high hopes for ITZY. They've shown they have what it takes, and I'm rooting for them to make a big comeback this year. And now, let's talk about our next group, Les Sserafim. Last year was a roller coaster for Les Sserafim, filled with both highs and lows. They started the year strong with their explosive hits Easy and Smart, which had me thinking they were on track to claim a Daesung. At one point, it really felt like they were leading the pack. But then came their Coachella performance, and unfortunately, it cast a shadow over the rest of their year. The backlash they faced after Coachella was relentless, and I find it downright disgusting how many netizens harassed the members over it. Even now, you can check the comments on any of their live performances and see someone bringing up Coachella. Look, I'll admit their performance wasn't great, but the constant bullying and negativity are completely unnecessary. It's disheartening to see how far some people will go to tear others down. Despite all of that, Les Sserafim bounced back in the best way possible with their release of Crazy. This comeback completely blew me away. What I admire most about Les Sserafim is their resilience. They could have let the negativity break them, but instead, they pushed through and came back stronger. That level of perseverance really shows their true character and determination. Above all else, Les Sserafim managed to win their very first Daesung at the Asia Artist Awards for Best Performance of the Year. Kudos to them. I know the girls have been through a lot, so this is a big win for them, and I know their haters are so mad. Not only that, I think Les Sserafim is continuing to add more bangers to their near-flawless discography. I absolutely loved both Easy and Crazy, with Star Signs being their hidden gem. I'm truly impressed by Les Sserafim's consistency with their music quality, and I have full confidence that they will totally deliver this year. I feel like the only thing missing from them now are their solo songs, which I would love to see. Because of this, I'm placing Les Sserafim in the great tier, just behind ITZY. While their live performances may have faltered last year, let's not forget the incredible music they've brought to the K-pop industry. Their ability to overcome challenges and keep delivering quality tracks has me rooting for them even more. Moving along to our next group, Red Velvet. Last year, Red Velvet seemed to slow down in terms of releases, only putting out one album, Cosmic. However, the quality of that album more than made up for the lack of quantity. I genuinely loved every song on it, and I have to say, I prefer quality over quantity any day. Honestly, I think more groups should follow this approach, focusing on producing polished albums and standout songs, instead of pushing out a high volume of less refined tracks. For example, ITZY has been releasing quite a bit over the past few years, but I feel their management could take notes here and prioritize quality over sheer output. Back to Red Velvet, last year marked their 10th anniversary, and they celebrated with a fan tour featuring some of their biggest hits. I thought this was such a great way to honor their legacy and connect with their dedicated fan base. It's amazing that Red Velvet, one of the few remaining third-generation groups, continues to stay strong and receive so much love and support. That said, beyond Cosmic and the anniversary tour, I didn't see much else from Red Velvet last year in terms of activity or additional releases. While Irene's solo album was a notable moment, I'm not including it here since I'm focusing on the group as a whole. With all of that in mind, I'm placing Red Velvet in the solid tier. To be fair, after a decade in the industry, they don't need to prove themselves to anyone. They've already cemented their status as a legendary girl group. Does this decrease in activity signal a possible disbandment? Hopefully not, but only time will tell what 2025 has in store for them. Let's move on to the next group, iLit. iLit had an explosive debut last year with their release Super Real Me, featuring their major hit song, Magnetic. As of this recording, Magnetic is nearing 500 million streams on Spotify, which is an incredible milestone for a group so early in their career. Their youthful, dreamy concept is a refreshing addition to the K-pop scene, and I think they represent it exceptionally well. There has been some discourse online comparing them to New Jeans. Personally, I believe no group should have exclusive ownership over a concept or style. It's also a bit unfair to judge either group negatively due to management issues, as these situations are beyond the artist's control. Let's keep the focus on the talent and hard work of the members. As for iLit, they are brimming with potential to dominate as a leading fifth-generation group. Their stage performances were among my favorites last year. Their choreography is intricate, engaging, and delivered with remarkable confidence for a rookie group. That level of stage presence right out of the gate is impressive and bodes well for their future. Their second release, I'll Like You, further solidified their place in the industry. It featured their first ballad, Pimple, which turned me into a huge fan. I was surprised that they didn't win any D-Songs in 2024, as I believe they deserved at least one. However, they did take home the Best New Female Artist Award at MAMA 2024 and received multiple nominations, which is a testament to their hard work and impact. All in all, iLit had an amazing run last year and are on an incredible trajectory. For these reasons, I'm placing iLit within the legendary tier. Next up is NMIXX. Since their debut, I've always seen NMIXX as the group with the quirkiest concepts. However, last year, they seem to have found a more stable footing in their style. I absolutely loved both of their FE 304 releases, with Stick Out being my favorite release of the year. Despite this, I was quite disappointed that NMIXX didn't receive any nominations for major awards in 2024, as I believe their releases were truly outstanding. That said, 2024 was an incredibly competitive year for awards, with many popular groups delivering viral hits. NMIXX has often been seen as an underdog in the industry, but I would argue they're one of the most well-rounded groups out there. The one area where I feel they fall short is their stage presence, which doesn't quite measure up to the dominance of some other groups. This might be why they're struggling to have their breakout year. Their stick-out era had an aggressive and bold approach, but it didn't quite propel them forward in the way I had hoped. For these reasons, I'm placing NMIXX in the great tier, ahead of Misamo. While their music last year was phenomenal, their overall impact outside of music didn't particularly stand out to me. I'm really rooting for NMIXX to make 2025 their big year. Following that, our next group is New Jeans. Last year, New Jeans faced a considerable amount of adversity, from ongoing disputes between their management and HYBE, to even some fans turning on them following their decision to part ways with Adore. Despite these challenges, they managed to win 2 Daesung Awards, one at KGMA for the Grand Artist Award, and one at the Asian Artist Awards for Artist of the Year, which is very impressive considering how challenging the year was for them. With only 2 releases, Supernatural and How Sweet, they demonstrated their determination to continue creating music. However, I can't help but wonder if we'll see a comeback from them this year if these issues persist. That said, I would still argue that New Jeans has a flawless discography. The songs they released last year were absolute gems, showcasing their unique artistry and consistency. Performance-wise, while they delivered some good stages, their overall activity noticeably lightened compared to previous years. They seemed to shift their focus to YouTube content midway through the year, which was enjoyable, but left me wanting more in terms of live appearances. Overall, while their activity wasn't as significant, the quality of their output remained high. For that reason, I'm placing New Jeans in the solid tier, ahead of Red Velvet. I truly hope they resolve their issues and stick together in 2025, as they're one of my all-time favorite groups. Seeing them disband would be heartbreaking, as I believe they were on track to become a legendary group. Moving along to our next group, IVE. I think IVE was quite generous last year with the sheer amount of songs they released. Notable tracks like Crush, Heya, and Supernova Love were among my favorites. However, I feel they leaned more towards quantity over quality this time around. Even with their standout tracks, nothing really compared to the excellence they delivered in previous years, at least in my opinion. They kicked off the year with All Night, featuring Saweetie, which I found to be a bit of a miss, though not as much as their single I Will. To be honest, that track felt a little cringe and forgettable to me. No shade toward IVE, I'm simply sharing my honest thoughts. On a more positive note, their live performances were solid throughout the year. They had some standout moments, such as their set at Lollapalooza, their appearances at various award shows, and the launch of their first world tour, which were all commendable efforts. Even so, I have to admit that nothing from IVE last year really excited me. I hope they refocus on quality this year, as I know they're capable of delivering D-Song-level work like they have for most of their career. For now, I'm placing IVE in the underwhelming tier, just behind Twice. That said, I do acknowledge their accomplishments, including winning some awards, and I'm optimistic about what they'll bring in 2025. But I know they can do better. Now let's talk about Kiss of Life. I think Kiss of Life had an absolutely breakout year with their hits Midas Touch, Sticky, and Igloo. They've quickly proven themselves as leaders of the fifth generation. Their R&B-inspired style feels like a breath of fresh air in the K-pop industry, and I'm particularly impressed with their choreography choices, which perfectly complement their musical style. Their performances throughout the year were nothing short of stellar, and I firmly believe that Kiss of Life is on a trajectory to claim the throne in the near future. Their explosive potential is undeniable. Despite having been in the industry for just over a year, Kiss of Life carries themselves with the poise and maturity of a seasoned group. They perform with the confidence and polish of veterans, which makes it hard to believe they're still relatively new to the scene. Each member exudes immense talent, and I'm confident they're on the path to a long and successful career. That being said, I was a bit surprised that they didn't secure any major awards or nominations at prominent ceremonies like Mama or the Melon Music Awards. While they did win the Global Hot Trend Award at TMA 2024, I feel they deserved far more recognition. Nonetheless, I'm placing Kiss of Life in the legendary tier, ahead of ILIT. While ILIT is also a strong contender in the fifth generation, I believe Kiss of Life has a slight edge in terms of raw talent and future potential. Both groups had an incredible year, but Kiss of Life's impact and artistry set them apart just enough to take the lead. Up next is (G)I-DLE. I'd say (G)I-DLE had a strong start last year with the release of their second full album, featuring standout tracks like Super Lady and Fate. Fate especially stood out to me. It's such a strong B-side and easily one of my favorite songs of the year. Their live performances for Super Lady were also top tier, showcasing the group's captivating stage presence. Earlier in the year, they released the single Wife, which was a fun and catchy track, but honestly, somewhat forgettable. They also collaborated with Jennifer Lopez for this time around and released their single Abracadabra. While I applaud them for trying something different, I have to admit both songs felt like misses to me. Their summer comeback Klaxon was solid, but it didn't quite hit the same mark as Queen Card, which was a massive hit the year prior. Overall, it felt like things slowed down a bit for (G)I-DLE last year. This could be attributed to their contract renewal discussions with Cube Entertainment, which they officially announced their renewal during the Melon Music Awards. Despite this, they managed to win a Daesung for Record of the Year at the MMAs, and another one for Grand Record of the Year at KGMA, which is an incredible achievement. As much as I love (G)I-DLE, last year felt like a mixed bag. On one hand, they had a strong start and a major award win, but on the other hand, much of their output felt average compared to their usual standard. Because of this, I'm placing (G)I-DLE in the solid tier, ahead of New Jeans. Up next is Triple S. Triple S is truly one of the most unique groups in the K-pop scene, and they showcased exactly why last year. One of their most striking aspects is their immense lineup of 24 members, which makes their live performances amazing to watch. Their performance really stood out at the Melon Music Awards, demonstrating how captivating a large group can be on stage. Their album Assemble 24 was a major highlight, putting them on the map and proving their versatility as artists. Another defining trait of Triple S is their constant rotation of subunits, allowing them to release an impressive amount of music. For fans of the group, it's a blessing to have such a steady stream of new releases. One of my favorite songs from them last year was Inner Dance, a track that truly captures their unique vibe. However, I feel like many of their songs are still underrated, and I hope 2025 gives them the recognition they deserve. I'm really optimistic about Triple S and their future. Last year, they clearly showed what they're capable of, and I think they're only going to grow from here. For this reason, I'm placing them in the great tier, ahead of Misamo. This isn't to discredit Misamo, but Triple S's level of activity and the hidden gems within their discography simply set them apart. Next up, Baby Monster. It's safe to say that many netizens had incredibly high expectations for Baby Monster even before their debut, and I believe they absolutely delivered this year, and then some. Not only did they release a series of great music, but their live performances were also on fire, showcasing their powerful all-rounder talent. What really stands out about them is their confidence on stage. Their choreography, vocals, and overall stage presence are on a whole other level compared to most groups out there. Even though they've only been in the industry for a year, they're already proving themselves to be a legendary group in the making. We're starting to see the fifth generation take over the industry aggressively, and Baby Monster is certainly one of the leaders of that generation. That said, I was a little surprised to see that they have received little to no major awards this year. While they've had some nominations here and there, I truly believe they deserved a lot more recognition. Then again, it's been an extremely competitive year with so many strong groups, so it's understandable. Regardless, I'm placing Baby Monster in the legendary tier, ahead of Kiss of Life. Right now, I think it's a close tie between Baby Monster and Kiss of Life for the fifth generation throne, as both groups had a phenomenal year and are packed with incredible talent and have a bright future ahead of them. Next up is Meow. We haven't seen too much from Meow yet, as they only debuted in September, but based on what I've seen so far, I have a strong feeling they're going to have an explosive year in 2025. They had a really solid debut with their song Meow, not quite on the level of Eyelit's Magnetic, but still impressive. They also performed their second release, Toxic, at the Melon Music Awards, which I thought was really cool. However, my favorite track from that single would have to be Body. Overall, I think their concept is really cool, and their choice of choreography aligns perfectly with their music. Of course, there's not much more to say about Meow at this point, since they only debuted a few months ago, but they're definitely off to a strong start. Therefore, I'm placing Meow in the great tier, just behind Misamo. It's mainly due to the level of activity, but I'm giving Misamo the slight edge because they delivered more overall, especially with their solo songs. Up next is Bad Villain. Now, Bad Villain is a group that I've mentioned in a few of my recent videos, and I wouldn't be too surprised if some of my viewers aren't familiar with them yet. Similar to Meow, I can't really say much about them due to the lack of releases. They debuted last June, so there isn't a lot to go off of just yet. Their debut was a bit under the radar compared to Meow's, and honestly, I think Meow had the stronger debut overall. That said, I would still consider Hurricane one of my favorite songs this year, but beyond that, I haven't seen anything from Bad Villain that has truly captured my attention. They did release another single called Zoom, but unfortunately, I wasn't too impressed. Don't get me wrong, I still have high hopes for Bad Villain this year, because their live performances are really cool to watch. However, I think they need to step it up with some better music. Their style kind of reminds me of XG, which is why I'm still keeping an eye on them this year. For the first time in any of my videos, I'm placing a group in the bad tier. This isn't to say that Bad Villain is a bad group at all, but I was a bit disappointed with their year overall. Don't get it twisted though, I'm hoping they'll have a stronger comeback this year. And finally, we've reached our last group, aespa. Where do I even begin? This was aespa's year, and I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone. Just the sheer amount of releases they had is impressive. They've delivered so many songs, and not only that, but a lot of them were absolute bangers. Every era this year was a success, from Supernova to Armageddon, Whiplash, and of course their solo music, which I'd say was the cherry on top. Hot Mess was super underrated, but honestly, I'd argue it's one of their hidden gems. Their choreographies were top tier, and all year long their live performances were on another level. aespa has been in the industry for 4 years now, and they've been gradually working toward that legendary status. I'd say that right now, they are at the top of the K-pop world. They entered the year chasing a daesang, and they walked out with multiple. Add to that all the other awards they've won that weren't daesang caliber, and their trophy shelf is looking mighty impressive. aespa has had their foot on the gas all year long, and in the end, it definitely paid off. I would even argue they deserved a few more daesangs, but honestly, that would be unfair. Without a doubt, I'm placing aespa at the very top of the list, at the front of the legendary tier. The big question now is, will aespa be able to maintain this momentum in 2025? It seems like it could be difficult, as they might burn themselves out. Honestly, I wouldn't be upset if they took a few months off after having such a stellar year, but we'll see what happens. And there you have it. That's my tier list of K-pop groups for 2024. What an incredible year it's been. And as we head into 2025, I'm hoping to say the same, if not better. One thing I want to mention is that with the new year comes even more groups to look forward to, and I can't wait to add them to my videos, which will bring even more content for the year ahead. I hope you stick around to see it all. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you liked it, consider dropping a like, and if you enjoy tier lists and rankings about female K-pop groups and idols, then consider subscribing, as that's the main focus of my channel. Again, thanks for watching, and see you next time.